Hello folks, Reverend CrystalCox here. Goddess Church. This is part of our Doctrine series. And today we're going to talk about Doctrine of Death. Sounds scary. Okay, this is just what I believe about death. I'll probably do more than one of these. So, Doctrine of Death. There's no such thing as death. Then why is there a doctrine about it? Well, stop questioning me. Those are just the voices in my head. Are you scared? Okay, I'll give you a minute to shut it off. Okay. There's no such thing as death. When we leave this body, we move to another version of us. I have left my body the first time in my early 20s in an incident of the undertow taking me in the ocean in Hawaii, and I thought I had died. And so I don't believe that death exists. So the doctrine is that there's no such thing as death. Consciousness moves on. The living have an issue with death because it changes their life. Sometimes it just triggers them to their own awakenings, because oftentimes when people die, they weren't really a part of the person's life every day, so they just they miss them. So it throws them into their own addictions and their own programs and their own triggers, and sets them on a healing journey. And sometimes when people die, the people around them or that even know of them use it to martyr themselves, and they focus their life on that person's death. When someone dies, it's their choice. Okay, we create the life we're going to lead, the lessons and all that before we come here. Okay, if we die, if and when we die, it's our choice based on our thoughts and our belief. If we weren't meant to die, we wouldn't die. It's a personal journey, and if you've experienced what many call the Mandela effect, I call a timeline shift, then you know that your consciousness, your operating system per se, simply moves to a different version of you. There's multiple versions of you right now living. There's versions of you that is a dog, is a butterfly, is a whale. You've experienced all of this. There's no such thing as death. Consciousness moves on, okay? And all time is at once. So there's no reason to fear death, because there's no such thing as death. Those who die don't have an issue with it. Yes, I have died. And I've been through many dark night of the soul, to where I've crossed over energetically. I lucid dream. I know I don't need my body to travel other realms. Okay? I don't believe in death. I'm not afraid of death at all. Okay? On comfort, there's different things in between that, but that's not what this video is about. And I don't have any issue with anybody that I know dying, because, yeah, bothers me at first because they're not in my everyday life and I miss them. But that's a thought. If I'm missing somebody and I'm crying and having a meltdown and altering my day, it's based on a thought. Why wasn't I thinking about something wonderful and amazing that I did with them? Or something positive and fun? Or thinking about, boy, it'll be interesting when this consciousness sees them again, because I know that they're out there. But instead, if I'm wallowing on, oh, I can't see them, I can't call them, when I could easily conjure up a call. I could be like, oh, remember when we talked? I could just like pretend I'm calling them. I could visualize calling them. I could visualize talking to them. I could remember something good about them. But instead, oftentimes people will just say, oh, I can't call them. I can't, as if, I read in a Wayne Dyer book once. I really just love this, is that whether someone's right next to you or thousands of miles away, your relationship with them is in your own mind. It's in your own thoughts. And the same goes for people who have died. Okay, you can sit down and talk to them in your mind. You can sit down and visualize them on the other end of the couch. And you can feel them. You can smell them, you can see them, you can feel that. But because you can't physically touch them anymore, you waller in that and you use it as a reason to hold yourself back. So instead of focusing on your preference or what's exciting to you or makes you happy, you focus on the negative parts of the death. So your depression is directly related to a thought. And you have control over that. And if you don't have control of that, keep moving towards that. When you feel yourself feeling grief, go, oh, well, what was I just thinking? And think of something that you know that makes you happy. You're like, oh, well, I can't just all of a sudden switch to kittens or laughing babies or some funny show, because this is serious, because I lost them and they died. And first of all, someone else's death is none of your business. We are responsible for our own deaths. I create my own reality. I'll create my own death. Okay, we're quantum. We project reality. You martyring in someone else's death that you had nothing to do with is not going to benefit you in any positive way. Is that your preferred reality? To mourn people dying? If it is, it is. And if you enjoy it, do it. But the doctrine of this church, my doctrine, is there's no such thing as death. You leave the body and you wake up in another consciousness. Those who die they aren't upset about their death. They don't mourn their death. It doesn't bother them at all. It's the living and the definition that they put on death. So instead of celebrating life, they mourn it. They put the negative emotions on it. They put the sadness on it based on their definition of death and what they've learned. And the person's gone and they're never going to see him again and it's final. It's not true. There's no such thing as death. The person dies to this body and their consciousness wakes up in another version of themselves, and they don't know they died in that reality. They're not like, oh my God, I'm like so dead over there and I'm so sad about it. No, they just move on. They just keep moving through their lessons or whatever. Even if they've killed themselves in one reality, they wake up in another, probably another version of themselves at that exact age. They probably just shift their consciousness so they can continue their lessons. Okay? And again, if you've experienced a timeline shift, I have, where the sun was yellow and now it's white, and we were on the Sagittarius arm in the universe and now we're on the Orion arm, and thousands of other things and supernatural Bible changes, okay? If we can do that, how is there such a thing as death? It's more like we're a simulation, more like we are a computer program. Our consciousness could be in a book, it could be in a dog, it could be in a chair. Whatever my consciousness was in, and I say was, my early 20s, I realized this, or even younger, that if my consciousness was in a chair or a dog or anything, I would still know it to be me. I would be coming from the first person, first dog, first chair angle. I would know that as me. So wherever my consciousness moves, my consciousness is like my operating system. You take like the USB out of one system, put it in another. Because my body changed, my anatomy changed. You shift realities, and so it's really liberating in knowing that you don't die. So it's the living that martyr death and make such a big deal of it. And then the government, religions, medical system make it into their own personal empire of hell, right? If you don't do as all the religious people want you to do, then you're going to die and burn in hell. It's just not possible. It's not a thing, okay? And then you have health boards and doctors and just all of this oppressive system that wants to keep you alive, cancer, chemo and radiate and just torture you to get more money and more energy and just feed off of you. And they hide known cures from you, right? They need you to fear death. They need you to be sad about death. Otherwise you'd be like, oh well, we're going to have barbecue, we're having fun. Oh no, the person might die of it. Well, I don't know, you do the best you can. Oh, here's some ideas on healing yourself. But cancer, everything's healable. If people die, they're meant to die. They're not doing their own homework. They're just listening to the doctor. It's meant to be. Trust it. It's quantum. The whole system, having all this money and like lock you up if you want to die and force you with vaccines and force you with all this stuff. You got to save you, to help you, to rescue you. The health boards and make sure you don't get poisoned at the restaurants and that's not quantum. That's not sacred. Them pretending to be concerned about keeping you alive. That's the system that's made you be afraid of death, fear death, be sad at other people dying. Because quantum reality, you'll see them again. There's no such thing as death, and you could shift to a reality right now where they're there again. whether you know it or not, okay, I know it. This is the doctrine of my church because this is what I know to be true. There's no such thing as death. When you leave this body, you go into another version of yourself. Your consciousness just shifts. You don't die, and you don't have the experience of, oh my God, I died in that accident and it was so bad. No, the living martyr in that and wallow in that and use it to hold themselves down based on their own definition, their own society, their own, instead of being excited about you dying, they want to make it all about themselves and cry about it all the time and use it as an excuse to not be happy. And the system supports that. This church, my doctrine, does not support that. There is no death. Every thought you have, every trigger, every program is your own responsibility. You're responsible for your belief system. Know your belief. Is it your belief? Is it someone else's belief? What do you really believe about death? And why is all of our society forcing people, they have like a zillion diseases and a zillion pharmaceutical drugs? It's all a bunch of baloney, okay? You can heal with frequency. You can heal with dry fasting. You can shift to a reality where you're already healed. Get control of your thoughts. Make up your own definitions of what all of it is. This one about death. If you're living and you're so afraid of death, and then you're feeding a system that has 1,000 diseases and 1,000 pharmaceutical drugs. If your body has a dis-ease, like they do the DIS and the DASH, if you're not comfortable, you have some sort of an issue, heal your body. Okay, so there's alkaline, there's energy healing, there's frequency, there's all kinds of things. But what they do is they pick out every little thing and they make it a new disease and a new issue, and they ban you from using plant medicine, frequency, the power of thought and prayer and things that actually really do heal people. And they patent the plants that they don't allow you to use, and then they force you to take some pharmaceutical drug. And if your child gets cancer, they force chemo or they take the child from your home. So this whole system is based on you fearing death. If you understand death, they no longer have any power over you. Anyway, that's my doctrine of death, my belief system on death. It doesn't exist. God has blessed you all.